Hello there, everyone. Welcome to Autism Demystified. I am your host, Dr. Vladimir Baryev. I am a pediatric specialist who specializes in taking care of children on the autism spectrum. And today I have two wonderful guests with me, Dao Phan and Lin Wang. And we are going to be discussing navigating the cost of raising a child with autism. So to begin, I want to mention to everyone, did you know that the CDC estimates that it costs between $40,000 and $60,000 annually to raise a child with autism? That comes out to a lifetime cost of between 1.4 and $2.4 million. That sounds like a lot of money that can put a lot of financial hardship on families to be able to afford. So my guest today will be helping us navigate these waters of how exactly families navigate the financial aspects of providing appropriate support and care for their children throughout life, and even as they grow up, their children with special needs grow up into adulthood. So I'm going to briefly introduce each one. So first we have Dao Phan. Dao Phan is the president of Matrix Consulting Group Services. She is a successful financial company that serves many individuals and corporate clients in over 30 states here in these beautiful United States of America. She has a holistic educational approach to financial planning with a heavy focus on tax mitigation. Dao has over 20 years of experience and also does financial planning for IRS employees, which is very rare to find indeed. If the IRS trusts her, that's a big deal. I am sure you all will benefit from her expertise as well. And also joining us today, we have Lin Wang. She is an attorney of Geerdes and Associates. She provides comprehensive legal solutions to protect clients' assets. She designs customized wills and trusts according to her clients' needs. And I have both of their contact information in the show notes at the bottom of our page. So welcome, Dao and Lin.
Thank you, Dr. Vlad.
So I would like to begin with Dao. By the way, I was very surprised to hear that you have over 20 years of experience in this field, because you look very young for your age, and you look like you love what you do, and it's keeping you youthful and very vitalacious going into the future. So it shows. And same for Lin. Now, my first question for Dao is just briefly, as parents come to me and I see families of children with autism regularly, and they ask me, at what point, so my child was just diagnosed with autism, for example, let's say, at what point should I begin considering the financial implications of for helping to raise my child on the spectrum?
You know, the obvious answer usually is as soon as possible, right?
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, it's also it varies dependent each individual's if they're fortunate enough to be able to provide for their own personal family. Not to mention, when you think of providing for a special needs child, it's almost planning on for the second family in itself. As you mentioned earlier, the cost of raising that individual on the average is 1.4 to 2.4 million as far as lifetime. So, often enough, it's really a combination of uh, both private, personally, what you're able to save for that child from whatever the age of diagnosis and beyond to how, and then also combining with possibly leveraging some of the public program, just kind of give it a little ironclad protections for them, just in case when mom and dad is no longer around, to have a crutch to fall upon as well. So those are things that you want to plan as early as you can, and then gradually maneuver through which program out there today will help facilitate that, such as SSI, the Medicaid, or when we reach more of the adulthood of SSDI or CDB. and then Medicare to incorporate. So those are steps as they go through the process to understand the resource limit as well as income limits.
Okay. Can you just paint a picture for our listeners and our viewers? What are some of the ramifications of not getting started in this process as early as possible? Like, can you give any case examples of where families have waited too long? Because I mean, obviously, the first thought that comes to mind when we have a child with special needs is we want them to be, happy and healthy first and foremost. We want all of their needs to be met. We don't necessarily first think about how we're going to pay for it. We kind of leave it in the back of our mind, and then when the bills come in, they're like, "Oh yeah, we got to pay for this stuff." What can you give us any examples of, like, what would happen if we take too long to reach that point of, like, oh, okay, we're going to need some financial planning to help us reach the goals that we have for our child?
Well, I mean, obviously, not planning and winging that process will be detrimental to that child's development in the future. In other words, as you plan ahead, it will put them in a more independent positions, hopefully in the future, versus not planning ahead. Now they will, fall behind via the educational systems, via the adult development, and ultimately, at some point, uh, parent would not going to be around, who would be left to carry that load, if not that they're going to be fall on themselves, right? Some might be lucky to have some siblings to help in that space, but not intervene. Just like anything else, you in medicines, early interventions can lead to minimizing the heavier cost of the catastrophic illnesses. Same thing when it comes to the financial aspects of it as well.
Okay. And thank you so much. I have a similar question for you, Lin. So one thing that comes to top of mind when I think of working with an attorney for a child with special needs is that I consider the concept of guardianship, and I want to, if we know that they are significantly affected, that they will not be able to live independently, and we will have to make decisions for them going forward, even after they become an adult. First question is, at what age do they legally have the right to make decisions on their own? And the second question is, are there other considerations besides guardianship for families to think of before contacting a lawyer such as yourself?
Yeah, so when a person turns to 18 years old in the United States, they will have the legal rights to make their own decisions. Some people will think like they have to be 21 years old to make their decisions, but the 21 years old is the time for people to drink legally instead of the age to make the decisions themselves independently. And so for children with special needs, probably they cannot make their own decisions even when they turn to 18 years old. So that's something the families should think about before, like, considering what to do with the financial plans for their children in the future. And I would say you can talk with your lawyers in advance, but you have to think about it, like who will be the guardians of the properties of the children if you pass away. That is a very important question before you proceed with your plans. Because like a lot of families I have met, when they have the special needs children, they are people from other countries. Because of my background, like I'm a Chinese person. So because of my background, a lot of my clients come from China originally. So unfortunately, they don't have a very strong safety network like in the United States. Perhaps their families are in China. Their families are outside the United States. So they cannot think of who can take good care of their children if something bad happens to them, especially when their children are special needs children and they don't have healthy children. Sometimes it happens very unfortunately. So that's my suggestion. Perhaps they need to think about who can be the guardians of the properties of the children if the children cannot make decisions themselves before turning to 21 years old. Usually, I would suggest them to think about people who are related to them, like families. Even if the families are outside the United States, they can still be the guardians of the assets. And on the other hand, if they cannot rely on the individuals, perhaps they can turn to some organizations. There are some group homes specifically for the special needs people, like they can be the guardians or the trustees of the properties as well. So that's something they need to think about very seriously. They have to be the people who really care about the interest of the special needs people, and they can have the ability to burden such work. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for that information. Wow, I never considered that there's just some people who don't have the luxury and access to their family as being able to guard for the children of organizations that will take that role up as well as now here's a question. What would happen, so this is also to you, Lin, what would happen if God forbid a parent of a child with special needs does pass away and they don't have any kind of written testimony, they don't have a will, they don't have anything planned going forward? What happens in those scenarios?
That will be a very hard scenario, because if the children are healthy children and they have turned to 18 years old at least, so they need to go to the probate court. So
Okay.
PROBAT, probate court. The probate court will be the court to decide who gets what according to the legal default hierarchy of inheritance. And usually the surviving spouse and children will get the assets, and then it will be the parents, and then the siblings, like level by level. However, because the children have special needs, so if they cannot go to the court themselves, there must be some people or some organization who would like to represent the children's interest to go to the probate court for the assets left behind by the deceased parents. So usually if the children still have families, like grandparents, like uncles, aunts, they will have the qualification to go to the probate court to get the money. But before that, they have to go to the surrogate court to get the guardianship of the children first. So they have to do it in 2 steps instead of in 1 step, because the children are the people who have the rights to inherit the assets. So the families of the children have to go to the surrogate court to prove they have the qualification and the ability to take over the work of the children because of the children's special situation here. And they will not hurt the interest of the children. And after that, they can step in the shoes of the children to go to the probate court to reclaim the assets of the deceased parents. And usually the process can take 1 to 2 years to finish the whole process. The government will charge them 5 to 15% of the fee. So for example, if the parents leave $1 million, so it can take from 50K to 150K to finish the whole process. And the government will disclose the information to the public just in case the people want to hurt the interest of the children. So it will hurt the privacy of the family. So that's why we always suggest people, for the best interest of the children, the family, to avoid the waste of time, money, and privacy, the parents should have a trust before they're passing away to make sure they have designated trustees. The trustees can be the parents' families, friends, or whichever organization who can take good care of the children to take over the assets if something bad happens to the parents, including if the parents are incompetent or if the parents pass away. So because of the arrangement, if the parents are incompetent or pass away, the families and organizations do not have to go to the court to get the guardianship of the children and the assets. They can take over the assets directly and immediately according to the authorization arranged by the parents in advance. So you don't have to waste the time, money, and privacy. So that's my suggestion. Thank you.
I want to piggyback on what Linda says in regard to the surrogate court and leaving assets to the child. It's very accurate. You know, in my practice, I recently had a client just travel overseas for vacation, unfortunately pass away. I remember when we fill out the paperwork in the past, I did remind the clients, you might want to leave the beneficiary just to your spouse as the adult, not just split it between your child and who's still a minor and your spouse, but this client insists in that. And unfortunately, he had passed away. The wife portions of the beneficiary of asset was released to her, but now the child case, even if living with the mother, the mom still had to go through the surrogate court just to claim the guardianship in order to then go and access the other half of the proceeds itself. So having that proper trust in place, if you really want to incorporate a child, will be very helpful via on a non-special needs, but especially in the special needs. Now, when it comes to, because you think about special needs, it's not just only about a child, but what if you have a special needs adult, right? And child grown to adult. For example, I'm passionate in this area because, I am also the guardianship of my older brother. So he has special needs in his scenario as well. So I have to think about, how can I properly plan for him if something were to happen to me, even if I'm the younger sister, so that it doesn't disqualify him from the certain benefits. Even if you can leave a large assets behind, but they are living longer, and so the cost of healthcare is definitely rising. And what you leave behind, just in case, might not be enough to cover, in typical expenses you might not always think about. It can range from education, of course, health and wellness, right? Housing in the future, transportation, legal fees, financial management, if you're not around. What if they need more physical or educational employment training, right? Technology supportive, think of long-term care. Those things can put someone into huge financial ruins, as well as critical illnesses, or burial, etc. So during the younger year, you can actually, there's plan and accounts out there called ABLE accounts. ABLE account offer a lot of tax benefit to the recipients of, which is the special needs child or to adulthood. Right now with 2024, maximum contribution is 18,000. It will not impact any of the public benefits if they're on. Income can earn and grow. And also when you take the distributions is also tax-free, right? Very similar to a 529 in that space in terms of the contribution in this is not tax deductible, but all the gains of an investment is tax-free to utilize. But if you use it not towards those medical expenses that I referenced earlier itself, then it will incur the taxes as well as the penalty. But how you also structure the ABLE accounts is also important, because that can tie into the special. You could use the contributions, because the maximum that can go into that account is 100,000, but total. But you can add in basically 18,000 per year until you hit that limit. And then the way that the structure you use it, in a normal scenario, if you would just use the special need to only pay for those expenditures for now that child become adult and so on and so forth, it could also impact their ISM deduction or the SSI benefit per se. But if you use the special needs trust, pay it to the ABLE account per se, then still use the ABLE account to pay their expenditures, it won't impact their benefits. So again, just a little extra step, but it can go very far to give them, the extra money that they may need throughout their lives later on.
So just there were a lot of terms in there that as a doctor, I myself found myself a little bit lost. So I just want to clarify it for our audience. To give them an idea. So, and this is a question that I would even have. So basically you're saying you have a child who has special needs and you want to help them you want to start to help to save money for other expenses they may have in the future. You open an ABLE account and you start putting money into that account for them. And by doing that, that money that is in the ABLE account is able to grow to bigger sums of money than if you just kept it in your regular savings account in the bank. Is that correct?
Correct. So, and again, that won't impact their benefits versus imagine you would put that into their accounts. So, just little tidbits and different ways to maneuver, but leverage these type of accounts out there can truly benefit the child's adulthood later on.
That is extremely valuable information. And by can you give us an example? If a client calls you, can you walk us through the process of an intake? What kind of information would you like to get from a client when they want to start working with you and want to start preparing for their child's future? Dao?
We first obviously look at their overall financial picture, right? Where they're at with their income liabilities. My specialty, especially also in the tax mitigation area, is to help them to minimize as much as possible as we work closely with their CPAs too. But just to have a first snapshot look at where they're at with their personal finance, then understanding what are their overall goals for their child, right? Some special needs are more severe than others. So therefore, what are the budgets that if there's any, if there's not a budget plan, we need to really, lay out that roadmap for that family. Remember, I said earlier in our conversation, planning is not just only that family itself. Planning for a child is like planning for a second family. So it's a more complicated, but we try to relieve that financial stress because it takes so much energy mentally already to the special needs child as it is as a family, but now to be able to navigate the financial piece, it's we try to guide them through the step as much as possible. And then of course when it comes to the legality part, that's when we bring in specialists like Lin to help try to like part two in this conversations as we start to implement these strategies for them. And then obviously how to fund the special needs trust as well. Sometimes it could be through cash, stocks, personal property, real estate, especially life insurance is another critical components to funding those special needs trust planning. And which type of insurance, should I go with term? Should I go with permanent? What are my budgets in that space? And usually you want to look into the permanent because you don't want it to, God forbid, expire, right? When it comes to the term insurance itself, especially you want earmark to go into the trust and to pay out to and to fund it for your child's in the future life. So
Yeah.
yes.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I hope everyone heard that and takes heed of these words earlier than later on. Is that um, it's critical to keep these considerations in mind early on, and to you've heard it here exactly of the kind of benefits that you can get from planning financial steps ahead of time, because without planning, everything will go into default mode. So things will get benefits may be withheld from your child if you're not planning appropriately, and taxes may be taken away because they're not your money that you're saving for your child and their wellness is not stored in the right place. So keeping those two things in mind. Where this is a question for both of you, Lin and then Dao. Where could families learn more about the exact steps involved and more information overall about just as kind of like the rights and their laws? Are there any agencies, any resources for families that you direct them to or point them to that you'd like to share with us? Lin?
Yeah, so I would say it's always advisable to talk with a lawyer first,
Okay.
or like financial advisors, because like different states can come with different rules and they have federal assistance program as well. So perhaps a professional people can give them like more information, and also they have the local agencies. Like because the families with the special needs children, they usually are more close to their communities because they need more help from their communities. So they can always turn to the communities about where to find such help, especially if the communities know more about their situation. They can give them more advices, like more efficiently. And just like Dao has suggested, the worst thing we can do is to do nothing and wait for that to happen, because on one hand, such children, they cannot take good care of their assets. And on the other hand, if we just give the assets to the children directly without protection of trust, in the future, when we pass away, the money will go to the children directly. And when they get the assets, if they have too much, their benefits will be withheld, will be done. So like we can leave the assets in the trust, so the trust can survive us. And in this way, the children can get both the assets from parents and the government benefits. And also we can protect the children from their creditors, their spouse, so it can give them a more comprehensive protection. And we have our contact information in the show notes, so they can always refer to us in the future if they need it. Thank you.
Thank you. And Dao?
Yeah, what I mentioned, only your local AIDS will organization will be one of the key instruments to help you navigate. There's also certified enrollment counselor that exists out there. You kind of just want to search itself, nonprofit organization and community health centers often is also another great resources to sit down. From the financial planning side, I would say sit down with the folks who you're comfortable with, find out from their experience, from the cases they work with as well. And then what would they plan for their own personal family if they have the special needs scenario? Obviously, having someone who dealt with it in their family will always gonna be more to your interest because they've gone through that process already, right? So that would be very helpful to you too, as an audience. And and of course, our contact is on the site here, where you can always feel free to reach out to us. We actually, Lin is also going to be hosting on the 29th. We're going to have a more in-depth an hour to go through the special needs trust of what you heard today, as well as more comprehensive financial planning as well. Dr. Vlad, do you have the flyer?
I do. I'm going to share that with our show notes as well for your event on the 29th.
Yes. So it will give you more details from what you heard today, and it's going to be quite, come prepared.
Absolutely. Thank you guys both so very much for all of the families out there who are navigating autism. Navigate autism with confidence. I am your host, Dr. Vladimir Baryev. You can contact my office for your child's personalized developmental care plan. And I just want to thank my guests very much for sharing their wisdom and experience with us today. And have a wonderful day, everyone. Thank you.